What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel and to another squad ratings predictions video, as a series that's been quite popular on the channel recently. At least has been one of the only things that I can talk sense about at the moment. Of course, we're in that stalemate between the FIFAs, and of course that's primarily what this channel's about. So when it comes to making content, it's kind of hard, considering that FIFA 20 not so much spoken about at the moment. It's definitely in its last stages of existence, if you will, and then of course we're a couple months short before we even get sight of FIFA 21, so it's kind of hard to balance it. Either way, today, as you'll already know, we do have the La Liga victors in the rating prediction series in Real Madrid as their squad, as you'll know, for today at least, with the previous episodes for this series, which if you haven't watched them, make sure to go check them out. So far it's been Bayern, Chelsea and Liverpool. I will be covering solely the squad players, likely a handful of young players, and then between all these teams maybe a handful of potential signings as well, and then just going over the predictions for these actual ratings of the cards and whatnot. Anyways, just before we get into all of that, make sure to subscribe to the channel with your notifications on if you haven't already. Of course, it's free and it's very, very important into helping me out and the channel a hell of a lot. And of course, in doing so, I will be keeping you guys up to date with the latest and greatest FIFA news and content around as we head on into the upcoming season. With all that out of the way, we will get on with the actual players now, and starting with Mariano as a player who's definitely looked over. He had quite a breakthrough season with Lyon, I believe, and then Rodrigo and Vinicius right next to him as two very young players, I'd have to say. People for the future, if you will, and of course they are very high rated at the moment, but Rodrigo does get a neat little upgrade and Vinicius does stay the same, which some people could say give him an upgrade, or you know, the negative people give him a downgrade. Of course, I have to frame this right now because the last video I did get a little bit of stick for these predictions, but like in the title, it's a prediction. You're not going to please everyone, and of course it isn't going to be bang on, but it's from somebody who's taken an educated guess, considering having watched the games that they have, these highlights, going around and seeing the general consensus in the communities and all of that stuff. And so for that reason, I am giving an educated guess on these card ratings. And as we move on to the second lot now, is a selection of 3 81 rated cards. Mandy with the +1, could be even a +2, because arguably he is one of the brightest fullbacks in world football at the moment, and of course it's very good news for France, because I'd say fullbacks is, you know, probably one of their weak spots, because their team, you know, regardless, is absolutely insane. And then 2 Spaniards next to him, Nacho Fernandez for the -1, and of course I do have to stress this again, the way that Bayern didn't get the highest ratings from me was simply because, of course, these predictions are based off a couple weeks ago when I made the graphics, and on top of that, you know, we're looking at players that maybe I don't watch thoroughly week in week out, and a lot of the fans may have a better take on it. But of course, this is opinion based, so try and not get too mad about it. Go for more of like constructive criticism, if you will. So take it as try and reason. I had a couple people on the comment section of the last video say that, you know, my predictions were stupid, or that it was completely wrong, or you know, it was too harsh on the players, which is fair enough. You could be right, you could be very right with that, but go around it as telling me why. Of course, you know, we're always looking to improve, and I love the debates that we have here on the channel and generally in the community. So make sure to add to that just by, you know, if you disagree with any of the ratings, make sure to leave a comment down below. As we move on to the third section now, in Luka Jovic, Asensio and Areola. Areola is a very iffy one for me. I'm quite surprised they didn't give him a downgrade. I don't know if he's going back to the Liga Un, as I'm not sure whether it was a loan move or not, but regardless, him, Asensio, Jovic, you know, they're all 82s. Jovic and Asensio with the -1s, just because they're not really, you know, a huge part into why Real Madrid did go on to win the La Liga, and so for that reason they don't get the props of winning the title for me. And of course Jovic is a very good player, a very talented young player, but considering that, you know, they have better striking or at least attacking alternatives, I could see Jovic maybe moving away from Real Madrid. Of course, he had that amazing season with Frankfurt, and then he just kind of switched straight to Real Madrid instantly, and I don't think that's the best decision. As we move on to the fourth section now, with Valverde, a player who's could, you know, potentially even get like an 83. He is actually very good from what I've seen, and of course he did get a winter upgrade, I believe, so that's why he's the 81, when I believe he was like 78 rated at the start of FIFA 20. So of course he's definitely working up the ranks, and he's one of the best Uruguayan international prospects at the moment for me, and the fact that he actually is quite competent, especially in such a strong midfield as Real Madrid's is, but of course he does now get the rare card card for me, and potentially even an 83, like I said. Similarly with Militao, who might not have absolutely broken onto the scene and wowed everyone, but a lot of fans should be pretty happy with this guy, considering that, he's coming to a brand new league after being in the Portuguese league, and has, done relatively well, I'd say. And then James Rodriguez, a guy who's really fallen down the pecking order, a guy who, has actually had his fair share of amazing footballing moments. For example, winning the best goal or whatever in the World Cup, and it just goes to show how talented this guy is. But I do feel like he's more interested in the extracurricular activities as, a multi-millionaire as he is, and that doesn't go very well with Real Madrid. A good example would be on the next screen with Bale. As of course, when he was playing with Wales, he had this banner, if you will, and it said Wales, Golf, Madrid in that order. And of course, that's a little bit disrespectful, and so a lot of Madrid fans really won't be happy with this guy. But you have to understand, he still is one of the most talented players in the world, and the fact that, maybe he's off form, he's fallen off the, down the pecking order, he's not getting picked for Champions League games, and he's not really doing very much for the Real Madrid side. He's going to be complacent because of the wages he's on, and the fact that if he ain't getting played, more chilling time for him. It's definitely the worst attitude a footballer can have, and that's why he gets so much hate. For me, if he just moved away from Real Madrid, maybe took a hit on his wages, maybe, he could still reach that top form that he used to have back in the early days of Real Madrid, linking up with Ronaldo. And his Spurs days, of course. Isco and Marcelo with the -1s as well. Isco could even be an 84, but again, he's one of those players that I think he's really good. Just didn't have the world's best season. Marcelo's getting older now, but could genuinely still keep his rating, a decent mid-80s, because he is still a very, very good defender. And a very good skillful wide man. As we move on to the next screen, in Carvajal as a fellow fullback to Marcelo, as well as Varane, who would be right next to him, and Kasumiro as a holding defensive midfielder who I actually really rate. I don't think he's very fast, and the pace of the La Liga is admittedly a little bit slower. Which means it just kind of fits his play style. He's kind of like a Busquets, only I'd say probably stronger and more assertive in the tackle, not as good at passing. You have to concede that because Busquets has obviously been amazing. But considering that they're going to be around the same rating, similar position, you have to give him that. Varane with the +1 and Carvajal with the +1. Two players that are very instrumental into why Real Madrid, of course, won the league. And maybe that's testament to how poorly Barcelona have done, as a whole this season. But you can't really undermine how good Real Madrid have been, and maybe they're a little bit unfortunate they didn't get further in the Champions League, of course. Now Varane, as one of the best, if not the best French international full-back or centre-back at the moment rather, and then Carvajal is a guy who is kind of overlooked just because he's not like your conventional modern-day full-back. He isn't quite as fast as some, but he's so good in his positioning. He can whip in a cross or two, and he does a lot in a game, and he's definitely a Mr. Consistent, as a lot of Spanish full-backs are nowadays. As we move on to the penultimate screen, 3 89 rated cards, all very, very good players in their own rights. Two with, little upgrades, and one with a little downgrade, but not so much because all these players are on top or low form, but just because I had to kind of even it out. Again, opinion based, so in that sense, I do believe that, of course, Courtois has been amazing for Real Madrid, despite having a pretty poor starter season in the La Liga last season. Modric has one of the best midfielders in the world, but I don't feel like he's been quite up to the pace this season compared to previous ones, and Kroos quite the opposite, hence the upgrade. As we move on to the final screen now, in Karim Benzema, a player that a lot of people love, including myself. It's a shame he's more of a Instagram model than a footballer, but that's not to take away from how good Benzema actually is, or Benzema, however you want to say it. And you can't actually see the free stats on the left, but I've given him some hefty stat boost just because he really does deserve it, considering that he is La Liga's top goal scorer. He is one of the best goal scorers, or highest goal scorers rather, in the world, or at least in the top 5 league. And the fact that he's a French international that doesn't even get ahead of Giroud is kind of stupid. I guess more of a political thing with all the controversies he's had. Ultimately, he gets the +1 for me. 87 is already a very high rating. 88 really is quite flattering, and he deserves it in my eyes. As we move on to one of the best centre-halves in the entire world, and probably what has been that for, many years now, with the 90 overall, just a +1, but Ramos obviously does deserve, recognition for being one of the best goal-scoring centre-backs, one of, the most consistent ones as well, and so in that sense he gets the +1 for me, and a -1 for Hazard as we round off the video, mainly because, you know, this guy was bought for like 120, 130 million, and he's, you know, really not lived up to that. That's not to say he will improve next season, because, you know, he almost definitely will if he can stay fit, as of course that is the denominator in this. It's the fact that fitness comes into it a long way. He, you know, approached Real Madrid after pre-season, you know, a bit overweight for his standards, and so in that sense he didn't really impress. But Hazard's world class, no doubt, one of the best attackers in the world, and if that doesn't say anything, I can put money on it he's gonna very much perform this season. He just has to for his own sake, and so he does get the downgrade, and we'll just have to see how he does this season, and he will round up the video today. So if you did enjoy the video, as much as, you know, it's a, you know, a long format sort of video where I'm just talking, I hope you did, you know, like the graphics, as I get to visualize it for you guys, and you get to understand whereabouts I'm coming, which angle I'm coming at with these players. And of course I'm being 100% honest, and if you disagree with any of the ratings like I said at the start, make sure to comment down below. Try not to be aggressive, come with it as a more wanting to improve, constructive criticism sort of attitude. Definitely is more helpful, and we don't need this community to be any more toxic than it is. So in that sense, I've rounded up the video with all these players. This is the Real Madrid squad for me. If you did like the video, make sure to subscribe for more videos like this as we go into FIFA 21, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.